Hi, welcome back to the second in the series of Secrets from Storytelling. And today is going to be about visualization. And what do I mean by visualization? This is the moment when you're speaking to other people and they start to build images in their mind. They engage in a visual way about what you're speaking to them about. And I think before we go any further, it's important for me to help you understand why is that so important, this visualization thing. And on a very basic level, we need to understand how the brain works and what the latest neuroscientist research shows us from how the brains and the pathways in the brains opens up. So basically what we know now is that the world as we perceive it through our eyes is imagined in our brains. So a lot of that information that you're receiving through your minds when you look at it, through your eyes when you're looking at something, a lot of it goes into the brain, but a lot of the time the brain is also filling out that image with reimagined images in your mind. So the important thing for you to understand is it's a bit like everybody's walking around in the world with their own mini imagined world, like their own mini VR reality playing away in their brains. And one person's VR reality will be totally different to another person's VR reality. And what does that mean for us as communicators when we speak to people? Well, we know when neuroscientists have tested the brain and how it opens up and closes down, they know that as they show images to people, they will see pathways in the brain open up. What's very interesting though, is that, and those pathways are opening up because the brain is imagining what is being shown to it. What is also interesting though, is if we're speaking to people and speaking to those people whose minds are being tracked, whose brains are being tracked, what we see is the same thing happens when very emotional and very visual language is used that they can identify with. And those same pathways open up. So it means that if we're using the right kind of language with people, they will engage on a much more deeper level because they're engaging on a visual level with us. And that's why it can be a very, very useful tool. Of course, in my world, in the theatre world, there is another important element to it because I don't want to show everybody everything in a play. I don't want to tell them everything. We want people to be able to imagine sometimes what is the consequence of something and what is going on, because if they imagine it, they will get involved on a much more personal level. And it's the same when we speak to people. And of course, there are many, many ways we can do that. But one of the most powerful and simplest ways we can do it is by using metaphor. And this works wonderfully with people. And especially when we use a metaphor that we've just created or one of our own and not an old one, then the mind really opens up and people become very, very interested in what we're speaking about. Let me give you a couple of examples to help you. I mean, love him or loathe him, a lot of people are very curious about why Trump, and especially his tweets, get so much traction and people talk about it. Well, actually, if you Google Trump tweets on Google and you look at it, whole lists come up all over the place. But what you will see is that his tweets are full of metaphors that he's created or people have created for him. And if you think back, one of his most powerful metaphors he used is he said, when he went up to get into government, he said, we're going to drain the swamp. And he was talking about the White House, the civil service, the bureaucracy. He didn't say, I'm going to get in and I'm going to do some spring cleaning. He said that. And think about those three words, drain the swamp. Now, I don't know about you, but of course I think of a swamp. It's stagnant, still, water, not going anywhere. It's gathering diseases. It's not healthy. You drain it, you start afresh. So you can see the power of metaphor there to get people to just open up and think of a story and engage and want to know more. And if you think back to another one, somebody on the other side of the political debate in America, Michael Moore, the documentary filmmaker, he used the phrase, the metaphor, he said, we live in fictitious times. Those two words, fictitious and times. He was one of the first people to get people to really identify with what became known as the post-truth society, the post-truth era. So metaphor can have a very powerful effect. It's a very small thing, But people find it very difficult to embrace and engage with just pure concept. It's very hard for our brains to do that. But we know that if we put something known and identifiable next to that concept, it will make it much more engaging for us and much more understandable for the other people. So think about, especially when you're starting something off, if you've got a new project and you want to give it a title, create a metaphor. It can be anything really. You can say, this new project, it's a little bit like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That's how I'm going to call this project. And it might create questions in people's minds. They might think, what do you mean by that? But then you've got them engaged and they'll want to know more, and you can fill that gap for them. You might also want to think about yourself. When you go and introduce yourself, if you had a metaphor for yourself, like sometimes I say about myself, I don't say, I'm an actor, I'm a trainer. I say, you know, what I do mostly is I liberate people. I'm a liberator. That's what I see myself as doing. And that causes a question in people's minds and they want to know more. So just look at what you're preparing to say next and think about adding in a few of your own metaphors to get people engaged in that visual way. And I'll be back next time to talk about another secret from the world of storytelling. Thanks a lot and good luck.